the APC administration, which started with Muhammad Buhari, was basically installed by Barack Obama. To all intents and purposes, it was a US regime change operation in Nigeria, a so-called color revolution, without being recognized as a color revolution. But that's pretty much what it was that took place in 2015. So, it, you know, I guess the genius of it all is that not everybody who is involved in a regime change operation, a foreign directed regime change operation, understands that what they're taking part in is a foreign directed regime change operation. Many people who did what they did in 2015 were under the impression that they were doing so. It's a political revolution. They're kicking out a corrupt incumbent, and if this new one messes up, we vote him out too. And obviously, that's not what was happening at all. It was someone in Washington D.C. that had determined that the current administration, whether it's corrupt, whether it's not corrupt, has nothing to do with the decision. The current administration in Nigeria is getting too friendly with the Chinese, and the rate of economic growth is getting to that escape velocity beyond which we will not be able to control them effectively any longer. So, two things need to happen. First of all, this friendliness, this relationship with the Chinese needs to be curtailed, and then this um, stratospheric economic growth needs to be curtailed as well so that they can remain under control. And those were the two things that happened after 2015 because Buhari came in. And as soon as he came in, the most important economic decision in a generation that Nigeria was due to make in 2015, which most people have forgotten, which was the Naira-Yuan swap deal, it's just immediately vanished off the table. Until today, we've not heard anything about it. For those who don't understand what the Naira-Yuan swap deal would have done for the Nigerian economy, basically, the major problem why the naira keeps depreciating and why consumer inflation keeps being such a problem in Nigeria is that most of Nigeria's imports are dollar denominated. So for you to actually import stuff into Nigeria, you have to pay US dollars for them. Meanwhile, the bulk of the things that Nigeria imports are actually things that are, in terms of consumer goods, are actually imported from China, right? So it really makes no sense. So what the Naira Yuan swap deal was going to do was make it such that Nigerians importing things from China could actually pay Naira to import those things, and Chinese importers buying things from Nigeria could pay yuan. So instead of needing to pay US dollars to import things, Nigeria and China would rather have a currency swap deal. That's the Naira Yuan swap deal. And what that would have done was that it would have significantly removed, first of all, it would have reduced Nigeria's import bill in terms of US dollars, and then it would have reduced Nigeria's dependence on the US dollar. And that would have eased a lot of the pressure on the Naira, which, on its own is responsible for so much of the economic devastation we've seen since 2015. That deal suddenly vanished off the table. And then, in addition to that, if you recall, Nigeria was a very key part of the Belt and Road Initiative in Africa. The Belt and Road Initiative, for those of your viewers who don't know, is a Chinese government program to essentially bring much of the world into China's economic and geopolitical ambit using infrastructure instead of force. So instead of pointing a gun at you and saying, come and do business with us, or come to our side, in our fight against the US or whoever, they would rather come to your country and build infrastructure. Obviously, they have their reasons for doing that. It's not free. They're, it's loan funded, and they are the ones giving you the loan. But the point is they're building infrastructure that you couldn't have built by yourself and that you wouldn't have had for another century or so. And in return, they bring you into the ambit. So Nigeria was meant to be a key part of the Belt and Road Initiative in Africa. In fact, most of the new infrastructure, which is still being commissioned to date, is Belt and Road infrastructure projects that were started off during the Yaradua and Goodluck administration. So your Lagos to Ibadan railway line is a Belt and Road Initiative project. Your Abuja to Kaduna railway line is a Belt and Road Initiative project. Your new Warri Deep Sea Port is a Belt and Road Initiative project. Your Itakwe to Abuja railway line, which is under construction, is a Belt and Road Initiative project. Your Abuja Metropolitan Railway system is a Belt and Road Initiative project. Your what's it called? What's the other one? Kano to Maradi. Yeah, Kano to Maradi railway line was supposed to be a BRI project as well, but somehow that also disappeared off the table. Now, apparently, supposedly, the African Development Bank wants to finance it. Let's see how far they go with that. The point is, Nigeria was meant, based on the trajectory that was built under the Goodluck Jonathan administration, Nigeria was meant to become geopolitically paired with China, which the US government did not like. Because if Nigeria does that, the rest of Africa will follow, and the US effectively loses Africa, which it sees as its resource base. The US sees Africa as the source for cheap industrial inputs, the source for cheap raw materials and natural resources to feed the global economy. So if that place that is the source for cheap raw materials becomes twinned with China and then starts building up an industrial economy of its own, then it's no longer going to supply cheap resources. It's going to use those resources for itself, or those resources are going to become a lot more expensive, which will upend the entire global economic system as we know it, which currently has the US on the top. That was the issue.